Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the Honourable Member for his fine speech. I enjoyed it greatly. And while it's clear that he's voting against this throne speech, there was a lot that he talked about, particularly in forestry, that is of particular interest to me in my riding. And it's clear, though, that this government in this throne speech is intending to reduce the services of this country to its bare bones. In Northern Ontario, Mr. Speaker, we depend on a strong CBC for information delivered in a timely and relevant and fair manner. We depend on regional programming. It connects us to the rest of Canada, particularly our First Nations. But it also allows us, in Thunder Bay, Rainy River, and Northern Ontario, to tell the rest of Canada our story. Now, the Honourable Member, I know, knows the value of the CBC, particularly for remote and rural Canada. And my question is sort of two parts, Mr. Speaker, for the Honourable Member. Will the Honourable Member defend the CBC against these attacks by this government? And will this member support annual consistent funding for the CBC?
The Honourable Member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad he asked that question. I never got to it in my speech, but I want to thank my honourable colleague from Northern Ontario for his question, and here's why. And when I sat on the Heritage Committee several years ago, we had Mr. Rabinovich at the time in, and one of the things that the CBC did was, I thought it was detrimental to regional areas, was they cut the supper hour, dinner hour newscast from 1 hour down to a half hour, which was detrimental in some markets. But the problem was it was one decision for all regions across the country. I absolutely agree with him on that, in that particular respect, but not only is it a reflection of one particular region that has to hear from itself, but also the CBC allows someone like me or himself in Northern Ontario or Central Newfoundland to learn about things like organ building in Quebec, or perhaps modes of transportation in Nunavut. Those are the ties that bind in this particular situation. Do I support single-year funding? Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I'll go one step further. I would also like to say what we need is a model that was developed by the BBC in England, which is we need a 7-year funding plan for the CBC that allows them to make capital investments beyond what they have right now. It allows them to develop the programming and develop the culture within this country. If we want to be that cultural mix, if we want to provide a sounding board for the whole country, then that multi-year funding has to be done. It was a $60 million one-off that should be a $60 million per year, but on a multi-year basis, so that the people of the CBC can...
Questions and comments.